Hello, I'm Kamali, taking you through the stories people are talking about and sharing around the world on Newsfeed today. An ex-spy gets sick in Salisbury in the UK. He's Russian and everyone is accusing Moscow of being behind it.
Look it, baby. Watching. Got this tonight. This is mine. We got it tonight.
And the winner is not this guy. We'll tell you about the attempted theft of an Oscar, streamed live on Facebook. Penguin poop seen from space leads to the discovery of a new colony. And mobile phones that just make calls and not much else are making a comeback. Apparently, would you want one? Now at the top of the newsfeed, and police in Britain are investigating the apparent poisoning of a former double agent from Russia. Sergei Skripal has been hospitalised along with his 33-year-old daughter after they were found in the city of Salisbury, unable to move, foaming at the mouth and vomiting. Now, the ex-Kremlin spook was jailed in Russia in 2006 after he swapped allegiances and gave Britain's MI6 the secret identities of other Russian spies across Europe. He was given refuge in the UK as part of a spy swap. Now, there are obvious comparisons to the poisoning of another former Russian spy. His name was Alexander Litvinenko, who was poisoned in London back in 2006 with a radioactive substance. This is him in hospital in the days before he died. Now, in this latest case, there is speculation that the powerful opioid fentanyl may have been to blame. Here's what eyewitnesses saw.
It was like her body was dead. Her legs were really stiff. You know when animals die, you have like rigor mortis. Both her legs came together as when people pulled. And when she's on the floor, her eyes were just completely white. They were wide open, but just white and frothing at the mouth. And then the man went stiff. His arms stopped moving, but he's still looking dead straight. And then the man started throwing up, but it was weird. It wasn't like normally when someone throws up. Like, you couldn't see that he was visually throwing up. Like, his throat wasn't moving. It was just, the vomit was just pouring out of his mouth.
Of course, as you can imagine with a story like this, social media is buzzing about it. A professor from the United States blames the Russian president, saying he, Putin, trades your spy for his spy, then has your spy poisoned to death. While some in Russia suggest that this is a British attempt to discredit Putin. This tweet from the journalist Alexander Kotz translates to, "The English have arranged Litvinenko 2.0 ahead of the elections." So could the Russian state have been behind this? Our correspondent Dana Lewis was a journalist in Moscow for 10 years. This is his take.
Russia, Russia, Russia. Headlines are full of comments about Russia today and implications, and probably people will already jump to the conclusion that Russia is guilty. Could they have done it? Sure, they could have. They've got one of the largest intelligence agencies in the world. They've got the means, they have a huge scientific community, they can deliver a poison here from anywhere in Europe if they wish to. What would be the motive? This guy was a traitor inside Russia. Nobody's going to shed a tear for him. He was a Russian military colonel in military intelligence who gave up some of his fellow spies, and therefore the motive is very clear. What could Russia gain? Domestically, Putin likes to look like the tough guy, and an election is on for a new president in Russia. Of course, Putin will become that new president, but this plays to his image. What would be the drawback? Worsening diplomatic relations with Britain, although one wonders if they could get any worse.
Now, Russia, of course, deny any involvement, as they always do when their former spies die in mysterious circumstances abroad. Now, we may never find out the exact cause of Mr. Skripal and his daughter's mystery illness. British authorities will be hoping they recover and they can provide some answers. MI6 are now involved. Well, let's take a look at what else is trending across social media. A statue of the former Soviet leader Vladimir Lenin has been pulled down in the Indian state of Tripura. The Communist Party's been in power there for a quarter of a century, and they've just been voted out. Well, let me tell you about an odd development in the US-Russia-Trump story. The name's Nunberg, and it's being shared widely. And it's this guy, Sam Nunberg. Now, he was once an aide to then-candidate Donald J. Trump, and he gave a series of increasingly strange media interviews yesterday, leading to questions online wondering whether he was drunk. Now, he's been subpoenaed to go before a grand jury on Friday and hand over all documents related to his time on the campaign. He says he won't go. Now, it's the day after the Academy Awards, and I've got another Oscar-related story to bring you. And this one was streamed live on Facebook from one of the after-parties.
It's 24/7. Look at baby. Come on, team. Got this tonight. This is mine. We got it tonight, baby. Mwah. Mwah. Governor's ball, baby.
Now, the guy in the video is called Terry Bryant. He's 47 and currently under arrest for suspicion of felony grand theft. Now, it's reported that he bought a ticket to that Governor's Ball after party and swiped the statuette from the table of the winner of the Best Actress. That's Frances McDormand. He then had the clever idea to boast about it on Facebook. Now, after decades of frostiness and hostility, the Winter Olympics appear to have warmed relations somewhat between North and South Korea, and Kim Jong Un is continuing the charm offensive. Take a look at him here. He invited the South Koreans to dinner, and on the menu was repairing ties. Amazingly, in the last few minutes, reports suggest that the North are going to denuclearize if their security is guaranteed by the South. That's developing. We'll bring you more about it later in the day. So what's been the reaction in South Korea to this diplomatic offensive? Well, Joseph Kim has been out in the South Korean capital, Seoul, to gauge some opinion.
I'm here in the heart of central Seoul in Gwanghwamun Square, where just behind me is the Blue House, the presidential office, where earlier Tuesday morning they held a press briefing and said that the South Korean delegation met with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un and that it wasn't a disappointing meeting. Now, the improvement in inter-Korean relations has been a contentious debate here in South Korea, especially as North Korea continues to pursue its nuclear and weapons program. But we've seen in the past several months that more South Koreans are becoming in favor of supporting dialogue as a way to handle the security situation. So I wanted to ask South Koreans if this is how they really felt about the situation and if South Korea should continue to pursue dialogue with North Korea.
We should give North Korea the opportunity for talks.
I think we need to start with dialogue.
One of the biggest concerns in improving inter-Korean relations has been that it could drive a wedge between South Korea and the United States. But Seoul has made assurances that once the delegation comes back from Pyongyang, they will coordinate with the United States because their biggest aim is for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
Joseph Kim in Seoul there. Let's take you around the world for some other top stories this Tuesday. Several southern African nations have banned processed meat coming from South Africa after a breakout of listeria. It's being linked to a type of cold cut called polony, and the company that makes it is saying that shops need to stop selling it. It's being blamed for the deaths of at least 180 people. Executives from Uber are in court again because hackers were able to steal the data of 25 million users. The company didn't tell anyone about the breach for a year. Now, the case is being brought in the US state of Pennsylvania, and they're said to be seeking $13.5 million in damages. The farmer bro Martin Shkreli has been ordered to give up assets worth more than $7 million, and that could include his Picasso and his single edition Wu-Tang Clan album. Now, a bit of background, Shkreli put himself and his company into the internet's Things We Hate column after he bought the patent to a drug used to treat AIDS and cancer and then raised the price 5,000 times. He made millions and was smugly unsympathetic. Now he's been convicted of defrauding hedge funds and will be sentenced on Friday. The Falcon 9 rocket has done another run into the stratosphere to deliver the Spanish satellite, the HipSat 30W6, if you're really into it. Now, it's a milestone for the company founded by Elon Musk. It's their 50th successful launch. And the Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen and his team of explorers have found the wreck of the USS Lexington. The Lady Lex, as it was called, was deliberately sunk after being badly damaged in the Battle of Coral Sea. Now, it was the first ever battle between aircraft carriers from the US and Japanese navies and raged from May the 4th to May the 8th in 1942. The Lexington was found 3,000 meters below the surface and more than 800 kilometers off the coast of eastern Australia. Now, it's not often I get to say this or ever, penguin poop. And loads of it has been seen from space and has led to the discovery of a colony scientists thought was lost. Now, if you are of a certain age, this tune will be very familiar to you. Well, that was, of course, the original Nokia ringtone back in the days when you had about 5 choices of tone for your ringer, and that was as close to a song as you could get. Now, Nokia are re-releasing another of their old designs, the 8110. We called it the Matrix phone when it first came out, as it was in the film. And it's not just throwback designs that are coming back. This is the light phone, which can make calls, and that's about it. The company behind it say they'll add texting to the version 2. So what's going on? Jim O'Brien is the boss of Tech Buzz Island, and we can ask him. So, Jim, nostalgic phones making a huge comeback?
Indeed, yeah, and this is their second comeback in their year in business, and the 3310 was the first one, and they surprised us with this phone here. We were kind of aware that there was a rebooted phone coming, but we weren't expecting this one, so it's been pretty much of a surprise for everyone and much welcome.
I mean, what's the deal with the nostalgia? Is it just because people don't want to have their phone constantly being able to contact them, constantly going on the internet? Do people just want to go back to a simpler time?
Yeah, well, this is it. They're not. These would be called feature phones, so you wouldn't have the full, operation of a smartphone, fully featured smartphone. So it's kind of brings back to the actual model itself, which I've actually 2 of them here with me, as you can see there, and basically they're taking away some of the features that the high-end phones or the medium-range smartphones have. It's probably an attempt as well to keep us away from our phone too, because we are spending too much time, our heads buried in them.
People spend far too much time with them. Now, it's a weird sort of change for the tech companies, though, isn't it? Because I was always under the impression that you'd have more technical phones as time goes on. We've got facial recognition. Why do you think there's been a regression?
I think it's a regression because, these phones are particularly for emerging markets and markets that are getting newly connected to the internet. And, they're offering a lot of, they have quite a few features on them, but again, as I said, they're taking away the full aspect of the phone. So they're keeping them simple and giving us just enough access to keep connected with other people all around the world and so on.
I mean, talking about paring it back, there's one called the Light Phone, Jim. I think you've probably heard of it. We're just showing a picture of it now. That is as simple as it comes. They haven't even got texting.
Yeah, I've actually had a phone similar to that called the No Phone, which I reviewed there last year. It was just a lump of plastic, resembling a phone itself for all the buttons on it. And we actually had a stick-on mirror to put on as well, just pretended to screen, but you could actually look into it. So, yeah, there is a kind of a trend there for stuff like that to kind of keep us less in our phones and, communicating face-to-face rather than through a mobile device, as much of us do these days.
And finally, I think it'll be fair to call you a bit of a Nokia nerd. Of course, we lost Nokia a while when we had the iPhone come out and all the Samsungs and stuff. This is clever marketing by them and good business move, isn't it?
It is indeed. Nokia have really came on leaps and bounds in the last year under the HMD global brand, and a lot of people kind of snuffed them, saying they wouldn't make a comeback, and they have. And again, a lot of people are saying they're tugging at people's heartstrings of bringing out phones like this. But, this is what people want. It's popular, and, it's good to see them coming back and bringing us phones that are, cheap enough as well, come to think, and putting them in people's hands, again, to get people connected. But at the same time, give us limitations as to how far we can go.
Excellent. Jim in Dublin there joining us by Skype. I'll send you a text later on to say thank you. We'd love to know what you think about that. Is your phone taking over your life? You can let me know. I'm at Kamali Melbourne on Twitter. Now, you can find us 24/7 on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, and I will see you again tomorrow.